Alright guys, in this tutorial we're going to cover some color editing basics. So while this photo is basically already done, I just want to show you some capabilities of what you can do inside of Photoshop. So if you follow me over to the image section up here, and then we go to adjustments, we're going to click on brightness and contrast as one of our basics. So if we take the brightness and move it up, we can obviously wash that image out, or we can bring it down if we didn't quite like how bright it was, and then we can play with our contrast if we wanted her hair to be really black and the whites to be a little bit whiter, and then maybe finagle with our brightness just a little bit if we wanted to get a more stark image. So big difference there compared to what it was, because if we Command Z, you can see it's kind of washed out now versus our vibrant contrast and brightness change. So another option besides the brightness and contrast would be the vibrance, and this is going to play with more of the high-end look of the colors rather than the saturation. So if we crank up this vibrance, you can see that it really brings out the color of the light that was used on her, which is kind of a blue light, and her skin tone. So not overly saturated, and when we take the vibrance all the way out, it's not going to be completely black and white. It's still going to leave a tinge of color in there. So if you want more of an Instagram-y looking photo and something that's more of a flat imagery, you're going to want to play with your vibrance. And if you want to just pump up the color just enough to give it a little oomph, then you're going to want to crank your vibrance up until it looks just about right. But your saturation is going to be a little bit different. That's more expanding the color scheme inside of what already exists. And so you can see if we crank that all the way up, it made her really tan. And if we bring it all the way down, of course, it's going to be a black and white photo. So if you like black and white imagery, a quick, easy way to do it would be to go to Image, under Adjustments, find this Vibrance option, and you can play with the saturation and the vibrance. Okay, another color editing tool is the hue and saturation. So you're still going to have a saturation option, which is exactly the same as what we just used. So if we bring it all the way down, it'll be black and white, and all the way up is going to be a little bit different because now we're playing inside of the hue world. So if we crank the saturation up too much inside of the hue world, it gets a little different. So notice how I'm just about 2/3 of the way up here, and that's about where it maxed out under vibrance. But under this hue saturation, that's right at the 2/3 option. If I go too far, it's going to start picking up colors back here in the background and saturating them more than I wanted them to. And of course, you have the opportunity to play with the hue of your image, which can change. You'll see this sometimes in photographs. You can change the color of cars or objects very easily just by changing the hue, because what it's doing is it's taking the general tone of this lighted photograph and now it's picking what hue it wants on there. And notice the black hair is not really getting changed because black is soaking up all the color anyway. So if we wanted to color correct this photo and maybe she was just a little too tan, maybe we could just move this over just a tad towards the blue, or if she was too blue, we could move it just a tad over this way towards the red, and then we could play with the level of saturation of that color, give her a little bit more of a tan color. And that's how people actually recolor photographs. If they're black and white, or maybe they're in that sepia tone, they'll come in here and they'll start with this hue and saturation. And of course, you can play with the lightness of the photograph as well in this hue saturation tool. So those are some quick color basics. I just want to show you one more thing, which would be the sponge tool, which is a tool that can suck out all the color of an object wherever you touch. So if you grab your sponge tool, play with your brush size and your flow, make sure it's on desaturate, and if we zoom in here, we can do some funky things where if we just wanted her skin to be black and white or maybe desaturated, we can come in here and do that just by taking our brush tool. I'm doing a very crude brushing of this photograph just to give you an idea of what you can do. I'm just going to do her her top half. I'm not going to bother with her legs and stuff, just so you can get an idea of what this sponge tool is capable of. So you see her legs are still this nice tan color, but I've desaturated just her arms, not her dress, with this sponge tool. So play around with that. And these are some quick color correcting options. There's a lot more underneath the image adjustments, and you can play with all of these options. And for instance, exposure would give you an opportunity to re-expose your image, especially if you've taken it on a camera that allows you to shoot in RAW formats. So this is a quick color editing option set to go under image adjustments, play with brightness, contrast, vibrance, and hue and saturation, as well as the sponge tool. So I hope that helps you in your beginning color editing options.